I never thought a birthday dinner could end a marriage, but that was the night my life split in two. It was my father-in-law's 65th birthday, and the whole family had gathered at a local steakhouse just outside town. Nothing upscale. Dark wood walls, framed cattle prints, dim yellow lighting that made every face look warmer than it really was. About 20 people squeezed around a long table, passing bread baskets, talking over one another, asking the same family questions people ask every year, as if repetition somehow makes intimacy. I was trying to enjoy my meal. That sounds simple, but for the last 5 years, trying to enjoy myself around Grant's family had become a skill. Smile at the right moments. Answer lightly. Don't react too quickly when Judith got sharp. Don't let his mother's silences bother you. Don't make Grant feel corrected in front of anyone. I had spent years learning how to keep things smooth. My name is Elena Ward. I was 35 years old when I learned that humiliation does not always arrive in private. Sometimes it comes with steak knives, birthday candles, and a room full of witnesses. Dinner had been moving along normally at first. Grant's brother had just mentioned a promotion. Everyone congratulated him, asked about the raise, the title, the new office, the usual stuff. Money and status always woke that family up. It was like blood in the water. Then someone down the table turned toward me. "What about you, Elena?" his aunt asked. "Still at the same place?" Before I could answer, Grant leaned back and spoke for me. "Oh, she's perfectly content where she is," he said. "Aren't you?" The way he said it made my stomach tighten. It sounded casual on the surface, but I knew that tone. There was an edge in it, something pointed and waiting. I kept my voice neutral. "The job's fine. It pays the bills." Judith, his sister, tilted her head like she had just remembered something juicy. "Didn't you have some big opportunity a while back?" she asked. I remember hearing about that. I didn't even have time to decide how to answer. Grant laughed. Actually laughed. "She turned it down," he said. "Said it wasn't the right time." A few people glanced at me with polite curiosity. My jaw tightened. That was not the full story, and he knew it. "It would have required relocating," I said quietly. "We talked about it together." Grant set down his fork with that deliberate little movement people make when they want attention before they speak. "You mean," he said, loud enough for the whole table, "I told you I wasn't moving, and you agreed because you knew this marriage wouldn't survive long distance." The air changed. It didn't happen dramatically. It just thinned. Conversations fell away one by one. Even the waiter, drifting near our table, seemed to sense something sour and backed off. "That's not fair," I said. I could feel heat climbing into my face, but my voice stayed even. I was proud of that, even then. "I chose us. I chose this marriage." Grant turned toward me fully. His expression was cold, almost energized now that he had an audience. "No," he said sharply. "You chose the easy option." Someone near the end of the table reached for a water glass and missed it the first time. Grant's mother looked down at her plate. His father shifted in his chair, but said nothing. I felt something old and familiar press against my ribs. Not surprise. Recognition. Grant had always known how to diminish me quietly. A joke here, a correction there, a little comment disguised as concern. But that night, he did it openly, almost proudly, like he was tired of editing himself. "You were scared," he said. "Scared of change, scared of challenge, scared of proving yourself." Every word landed clean. I remembered the night that job offer had come in 8 months earlier. I remembered sitting on the couch with my laptop open, trying not to smile too hard, while I read the title, the salary bump, the relocation package. I remembered how my heart had raced. I remembered thinking, this could change everything. And I remembered Grant looking at me like I had betrayed him for even considering it. "So I'm supposed to leave my whole life here? What about my job? What about my family? You really think a serious marriage survives that?" He had framed it as maturity, as partnership, as sacrifice. And because I loved him, because I thought compromise was what love required, I folded my dreams neatly and put them away. Now he was using that same sacrifice as evidence that I lacked courage. "You made that decision for you," I said, "not for us." He pointed at me from across the table. "No, you made it because you're terrified of being alone." That hit harder than the others, not because it was true, but because he had chosen it carefully. He knew exactly where to aim. The whole table had gone silent now. Not awkward silence, attentive silence. The kind people settle into when they know they should intervene and decide not to. My face felt hot. My chest felt hollow. "You knew if you left," Grant said. "I wouldn't wait around." There was something in his eyes then that I still remember with painful clarity. Not anger, not even resentment. Certainty. He believed this story, or maybe he needed to. You couldn't handle that, he said. His father finally cleared his throat. Maybe we should talk about something else. But it was weak, obligatory, too late. Grant ignored him. You know what your problem is, Elena, he said. You're comfortable being mediocre. I looked around the table. His mother stared at her napkin. Judith looked vaguely satisfied. His brother suddenly found the table salt fascinating. Nobody said a word. Nobody told him to stop. Nobody asked me what had really happened when I turned down that offer. That silence was its own answer. He leaned back in his chair, folded his arms, and delivered the line that ended us. If you want to leave, he said, go ahead. Walk out that door. You'll come crawling back within weeks, maybe days. His mother gasped. Grant, that's enough. I'm serious, he said. His eyes stayed on me. She needs me more than I need her. We all know it. She knows it. Something inside me went very still. Not shattered, still. It was the stillness that comes when pain passes a certain point and turns into clarity. I looked at him, really looked at him, and understood that this was not one bad night. This was a truth that had finally stopped wearing a mask. I pushed my chair back. The scrape of the legs against the floor cut through the room. Where are you going? Grant asked, sounding almost bored. I picked up my bag, pulled out my wallet, and placed enough cash on the table to cover my meal. Then I looked at his father. Happy birthday, I said. He looked embarrassed, ashamed maybe, but shame without action is just another kind of silence. Behind me, Grant called out, See? Running away like always. I didn't turn around. I walked through the restaurant, past the hostess stand, past strangers halfway through their dinners, out into the parking lot where the night air hit my face hard enough to make me realize I had been holding my breath. My hands were shaking when I reached my truck. Not from anger, from clarity. He really believed I needed him. He believed I was too scared, too ordinary, too dependent to survive on my own. And maybe the worst part was that some small, exhausted part of me had started believing it too. I drove home without checking my phone once. It started buzzing before I was halfway there. Calls, texts, more calls. I ignored all of them. When I got home, I went straight to the bedroom, pulled an old duffel bag from the closet, and started packing. Jeans, work clothes, toiletries, chargers, important documents, my laptop, a framed photo of my mother I kept in the nightstand drawer. Not everything, just enough to leave without having to come back immediately. The phone kept vibrating across the dresser like something alive. I let it. 40 minutes later, I checked into a motel off the highway. Cheap, clean, forgettable. $70 a night. Beige bedspread. Weak air conditioning. A lamp with a crooked shade. It was the kind of place nobody planned to stay in longer than necessary. Perfect. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally looked at my phone. 17 missed calls. Dozens of texts. The first ones were angry. You're being childish. Come back right now. You embarrassed yourself tonight. Where are you? Answer your phone. Then the tone shifted. This isn't funny anymore. We need to talk. Don't do something stupid. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then opened my email instead. I knew exactly what I was looking for. 8 months earlier, I had archived a message I could never quite bring myself to delete. Subject, exciting opportunity. Still interested? I had kept it for reasons I didn't want to examine too closely. Maybe because part of me had known, even then, that one day I might need to remember that another version of my life had once reached for me. I opened it. Senior position. Different state. Better benefits. A significant salary increase. Actual room to grow. A future. I had turned it down because Grant didn't want to move, because he had his job, his routines, his family, his comfort, because I thought love meant compromise, because I thought choosing us would be honored, not weaponized. She needs me more than I need her. The sentence rang in my head with awful precision. I hit reply. My fingers hovered for only a second before I began typing. Mr. Baxter, I hope this message finds you well. I know it has been several months since we last spoke about the position. If the opportunity is still available, I'd like to express my serious interest in moving forward. My circumstances have changed, and I am now in a position to relocate. Please let me know if we can discuss this further. I reread it once. Then I sent it before fear, loyalty, and old habits could catch up. My phone buzzed again. Another call from Grant. I declined it. A text came through immediately after. You're acting insane. Come home so we can talk like adults. I turned the phone face down on the nightstand, lay back on the stiff motel pillow, and stared at the ceiling. For the first time all night, I wasn't thinking about what I had lost. I was thinking about what I had just started. Morning came too early. The motel curtains were thin, and the pale gray light of early morning slipped through them long before I was ready to be awake. For a few seconds, I didn't remember where I was. Then the stiff mattress, the humming air conditioner, and the faint smell of old carpet pulled reality back into place. Steakhouse. Grant. The words he said in front of everyone. My phone lay face down on the nightstand, exactly where I had left it. For a moment, I considered leaving it there. Then I flipped it over. More messages. Not just from Grant this time. His family had joined in. Judith first. What's going on? Grant says you just stormed out. Then his mother. You two need to work this out. Marriages take effort. Then his brother. Come on, Elena, just talk to him. You're making this worse. I scrolled through them slowly. Anger, confusion, advice, guilt. Not one message asked if I was all right. 23 attempts to manage the problem without acknowledging the cause. I deleted them all. Then I checked my email. There it was. 6:02 a.m. from Mr. Baxter. My chest tightened as I opened it. Great to hear from you, Elena. The original position has been filled, but we actually have an even better opportunity that opened recently. Are you available for a call this morning? I read the message twice. An even better opportunity. I checked the time. 7:18 a.m. I showered quickly, dressed, grabbed coffee from the small machine in the motel lobby, and sat on the edge of the bed with my laptop open in front of me. At exactly 8 a.m., I called the number in his signature. Elena Ward, the voice answered warmly. I was hoping you'd call. Good morning, Mr. Baxter. Please call me David. There was the faint clicking sound of a keyboard on his side of the line. I'll be honest, he said after a moment. We were disappointed when you turned down the role last time. You were our top candidate. Something in my chest shifted hearing that. Not flattery, validation. But this new opening, he continued, might actually be a better fit. I listened as he explained. Team lead position, larger project scope, more responsibility. And then he mentioned the number. Compensation would be about 52% higher than your current salary. I did the math automatically. Even after taxes, that would be life-changing. When would you need me to start? I asked. There was a brief pause. 2 weeks, he said. 3 if relocation becomes complicated. 2 weeks. My entire life could fit into the back of my truck. 2 weeks works, I said. Another pause. Then he laughed softly. I had a feeling you'd say that. HR will send paperwork today. Welcome aboard, Elena. When the call ended, I sat there for a long moment with the phone still in my hand. 2 weeks. Just like that. My life had tilted in a completely different direction. My phone buzzed again. Grant. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. Then I answered. Where are you? He demanded immediately. Not worried. Annoyed. Doesn't matter, I said calmly. It absolutely matters, he snapped. You need to come home so we can talk about last night. There's nothing to talk about. You embarrassed yourself, Elena. You stormed out like a teenager. I almost laughed. Mission accomplished, I said. There was a short silence on the line. What does that mean? I accepted a job, I said. I'm moving in 2 weeks. Another silence. Then a single word. Liar. You can believe whatever you want. You can't just leave, he said. We have a lease. Bills. Responsibilities. I'll pay my half of this month's rent, I said. After that, you're on your own. His voice hardened. You're really doing this over one argument? I sat back against the motel headboard. It wasn't one argument, I said. It was you finally saying out loud what you've believed for years. You're being dramatic. You told 20 people I was weak. I told the truth. There it was. No apology, no hesitation. Just certainty. Then I guess we're done here, I said. Go ahead, he said coldly. You won't last 2 months out there by yourself. Maybe, I said. Then I hung up. The next 2 days were logistics. Unromantic, practical, necessary. I went to the bank and withdrew my portion of our shared savings. It wasn't much, just under $3,000, but it was enough to get started. I opened a new checking account at a different bank. I transferred my direct deposit. I canceled a couple of shared subscriptions that were tied to my email. Every small step felt strangely calm. Not dramatic. Just final. On the second afternoon, I went back to the house while I knew Grant would be at work. Walking through the front door felt strange. The same furniture. The same framed photos. The same faint smell of laundry detergent and coffee. 5 years of life arranged neatly across 2 bedrooms and a living room. I packed quietly. More clothes, my laptop monitor, a few books. The things that mattered. The rest stayed where it was. On the kitchen counter, I left my house key. My phone buzzed again while I was packing. Grant. I ignored it. A minute later, a text appeared. We need to talk in person. Another message followed. I'm not doing this over the phone. I didn't respond. I finished packing, loaded everything into the truck, and drove back to the motel. On the 3rd day, he found me. I had just come back from getting coffee when I saw his car in the motel parking lot. He was standing outside my door with his arms crossed. I walked up slowly. "How did you find me?" I asked. "I checked every cheap motel within 10 miles, he said. That sounded exactly like him. Methodical when something threatened his control. I unlocked the door, but didn't step aside. "What do you want?" He studied my face like he was looking for signs of weakness. "Understanding what's happening," he said. "You're throwing away 5 years over one bad night." "One bad night?" I shook my head. "That was the night you finally said what you've been thinking all along." His expression tightened. I was angry. "You were honest." For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then he tried a different tone. Softer. "I'm sorry," he said. "I shouldn't have said those things." It was the first apology, and it sounded rehearsed. "Come home," he added. "We can work on this." I looked past him at the parking lot, at the row of faded doors, at the highway beyond it. "There's nothing to work on," I said. "I'm leaving in 11 days. His eyes narrowed. "You're serious about this job?" "Yes." "And what about us?" "There is no us," I said. "Not anymore." For a moment, the softness vanished. His face hardened again. "That job won't work out," he said quietly. "You'll be miserable and alone." Maybe he believed that. Maybe he needed to. I opened the motel door. "I won't be here when you realize you need me," he added. I stepped inside and closed the door. Through the thin walls, I could hear his footsteps in the parking lot for a few seconds. Then his car started. Then it drove away. That night, an email arrived from HR. Contract, benefits, relocation assistance. I read every line carefully. Then I signed it. 10 days to go. Once the contract was signed, everything began moving faster. Not emotionally, logistically. The email from HR confirmed my start date, outlined relocation details, and included a short welcome packet about the company and the city. It all looked surprisingly normal. No dramatic language, no promises about life-changing transformation, just paperwork and expectations. I liked that. It felt real. 10 days. That was how long I had to finish closing the life I had built with Grant. My phone continued buzzing during those first few days. I stopped reading most of the messages. The pattern had already become predictable. Grant's texts rotated between irritation and disbelief. "You're overreacting. Come home so we can talk properly. You're making a mistake." Then came the guilt. 5 years, Elena, you're throwing that away." His family picked up the same line. Judith again. "You're being dramatic. Marriages have fights." His mother. "Grant is hurting too. Try to see his side." His brother. "You're better than this. Just fix it." Nobody said he should never have spoken to me that way. By the end of the week, I stopped responding entirely. On day 7, I changed my phone number. The new one went to exactly 2 people, my current supervisor and HR at the new company. The silence afterward felt like stepping out of traffic. My final week at work passed quickly. I submitted my resignation in person. My supervisor looked surprised. "You gave notice pretty suddenly," she said. "Everything okay?" I considered how to answer. Then I said the truth, or at least the useful version of it. New opportunity, different state. She leaned back in her chair and nodded slowly. "Well," she said after a moment, "they're lucky to have you." The sentence landed harder than she probably intended. In 5 years with Grant, I couldn't remember the last time he had said something that simple and sincere about me. "You've always been solid here," she continued. "Reliable, smart. We'll miss you." For a second, I felt something tighten in my throat. Not sadness. Relief. It turns out validation feels different when it doesn't come wrapped in criticism. Saturday morning arrived quietly. No speeches, no dramatic final arguments. Just sunlight coming through the blinds and the quiet understanding that it was time to go. Everything I owned now fit into the truck. 2 suitcases, a duffel bag, my laptop equipment, 3 boxes of books and personal things. 5 years of shared life reduced to the things that actually belonged to me. I drove past the house once on the way out of town. Grant's car was in the driveway. For a moment, I slowed. Not because I was tempted to stop, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't. The house looked exactly the same. Same porch light, same mailbox, same little maple tree in the yard that Grant had insisted on planting even though it was the wrong climate for it. I didn't stop. I kept driving. The new city was about 5 hours away. The drive gave my mind too much room to wander. At first, I replayed the dinner again. The exact moment his tone shifted. The look on Judith's face, the way nobody at that table had spoken up. Then slowly, the memory lost its sharpness. It stopped being an argument and started becoming something else. Evidence. Grant had said something very clear that night. "You need me more than I need you." At the time, he had meant it as a weapon. But the truth was simpler. He needed that belief. Because the alternative, that I could leave and build something without him, would have forced him to reconsider the entire structure of our marriage. And Grant had never been interested in reconsidering anything. I reached the new city in the late afternoon. It was smaller than I expected. Not tiny, but manageable. Traffic moved. Parking wasn't impossible. The skyline was modest, mostly low office buildings and a few taller glass towers near the center. It felt calm. Before checking into the temporary hotel HR had arranged, I drove by the company building. 5 stories of glass and steel with the Parks Industries logo mounted across the front. Clean, modern, quiet on a Sunday. For a moment, I sat in the truck looking at it. 8 days earlier, I had been sitting at a steakhouse table while my husband explained to 20 people why I lacked ambition. Now I was parked outside the building where my new job would start the next morning. Life changes quickly when you stop asking permission. Monday morning arrived with the nervous energy of the first day at school. I walked into the lobby at 7:55. At exactly 8 o'clock, a tall man with silver hair approached me with a warm smile. Elena Ward? Yes. David Baxter, he said, shaking my hand. Good to finally have you here. His handshake was firm and straightforward. No subtle power play. No evaluation. Just welcome. He showed me around the office floor, open workspaces, conference rooms, a quiet hum of early morning productivity. People looked up from their desks, curious but friendly. No one looked irritated by my presence. That alone felt unfamiliar. This is your team, Baxter said as we reached a cluster of desks near the back of the floor. 6 people looked up. He introduced them one by one. Project analysts, engineers, a data specialist. Everyone nodded, shook my hand, or offered a quick greeting. One of them, a tall guy with messy brown hair, grinned and said, "You find a place to live yet?" "Still in a hotel," I admitted, "looking at apartments this week." He shrugged. "I've got a spare room if you're interested, $300 a month plus utilities. Not glamorous, but cheap." That caught my attention immediately. "What's the catch?" I asked. He laughed. "No catch, I just hate living alone." His name was Lucas. I visited the place after work that day. Small house, slightly worn, but clean. The spare room had a bed frame, a desk, and a window facing the backyard. $300 a month was almost suspiciously cheap. "I told you," Lucas said, leaning against the doorframe. "Not fancy." I looked around the room. A place to sleep, a place to work, a door that locked. It was enough. "I'll take it," I said. I moved in that weekend. The entire move took 2 trips from the hotel. I bought a used mattress and frame from a thrift store. Lucas helped carry it upstairs. We set up my laptop on an old desk he had stored in the garage. When everything was finished, I stood in the middle of the small room and looked around. 2 suitcases, a desk, a bed. That was my life now. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Work turned out to be better than I expected. My direct supervisor, Kelly, was direct without being harsh. When I did something well, she said so. When I made a mistake, she showed me how to fix it. No lectures. No subtle insults disguised as feedback. "You're picking this up faster than most people," she told me at the end of my second week. That sentence stayed with me for the rest of the day. 3 weeks in, I received my first paycheck. I opened the banking app twice to make sure the number was real. After taxes and insurance, I was still taking home more money than I had earned in an entire month at my previous job. I paid Lucas the rent, bought groceries, and still had money left over. Actual savings. It felt strange, like discovering a room in your house you never realized existed. One evening, curiosity got the better of me. I turned on my old phone. The screen lit up immediately. Dozens of missed calls, more than 200 text messages. The first wave had been Grant. Angry, then confused, then almost desperate. "You can't just disappear. We need to talk. This is childish." Then his family joined in. "Judith, you're blowing this out of proportion." His mother. "Grant is struggling. Please reconsider." Not one message addressed what he had actually said at that dinner. Not one. The most recent message was from 5 days earlier. From Grant. "I talked to a lawyer. If you want a divorce, fine, but we're handling this properly." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I turned the phone off again. Some chapters don't need revisiting. At work, things continued improving. After about 6 weeks, Kelly asked me to lead a small internal project. The team listened when I spoke. Not politely. Seriously. We finished the project ahead of schedule. "That's rare," Kelly said. Outside work, life slowly expanded. Lucas invited me to a local bar one evening where he played pool with friends. The place was loud, casual, comfortable. No one there knew my past. No one had opinions about my choices. One of Lucas's friends sat beside me at the bar later that night. Her name was Alexa. She worked in accounting at another company across town. Funny, sharp, the kind of person who didn't let anyone get away with nonsense. "You moved here out of nowhere?" she asked. "Pretty much. Running from something or running towards something?" I thought about the question. Then I shrugged. Maybe both. She nodded like that answer made perfect sense. And for the first time in a long time, conversation felt easy. Nobody was keeping score. Nobody was waiting for me to fail. Later that night, as we walked back to Lucas's car, he nudged my shoulder. Alexa likes you. I glanced at him. You're very observant. He grinned. I try. I didn't know what to do with that information, so I filed it away. Some possibilities didn't need to be rushed. A week later, I met with a lawyer recommended by a coworker. His name was Evans. After reviewing the situation, he leaned back in his chair. No kids, no shared property beyond ordinary household items, minimal savings. This should be straightforward. Then he looked at the documents again. Grant is contesting, he added, claiming you abandoned the marriage and asking for compensation for emotional distress. I laughed. Of course he is. Evans nodded. Classic tactic. What do I actually owe him? I asked. Half of any clearly marital savings that remained at separation, Evans said. From what I can see, you already took only your documented share, so likely nothing beyond routine processing. Then what is he trying to accomplish? Evans shrugged. Pressure, leverage, noise. I nodded. Let it be noise. 3 days later, Grant found my new number. You can't erase 5 years. A second message followed. We built a life together. Then another. I'm not asking you to come back. Just help me with the transition. Lucas read the messages over my shoulder and shook his head. Classic guilt strategy, he said. I locked the phone and set it down. Grant had been wrong about one thing. I didn't need him. And every day that passed made that truth easier to see. By the time my 3rd month in the new city began, something subtle had shifted. Not around me. Inside me. The constant tension I had lived with for years. The quiet awareness that anything I did could be criticized, minimized, or turned into evidence that I wasn't enough, had slowly faded. Work helped. Routine helped. But the biggest change was simpler than that. No one here expected me to shrink. At Parks Industries, results mattered more than personality games. Kelly didn't micromanage. Baxter didn't hover. My team treated my decisions like they actually carried weight. That was new. For 5 years, I had been the person who adjusted, compromised, smoothed things over. Now I was the one setting direction. And the strangest part was how natural it felt. One afternoon, Kelly stopped by my desk. Got a minute? I followed her into a small conference room. She closed the door and slid a folder across the table. The project you led last month, she said. Senior leadership noticed. That sentence alone made my stomach tighten slightly. Not from fear, from the unfamiliar feeling of being evaluated without hostility. They were impressed, she continued. Ahead of schedule, under budget, and no unnecessary drama. She leaned back in the chair. Honestly, that's rare. I smiled slightly. I'll take rare. Kelly nodded. Keep doing what you're doing. The meeting lasted 5 minutes, but the effect lingered all afternoon. I walked back to my desk realizing something simple and almost embarrassing. Grant had been wrong about my ambition. He had just never been interested in seeing it. My life outside work settled into something comfortable. Lucas turned out to be the easiest roommate imaginable. He paid his half of the bills on time, didn't care if dishes sat in the sink overnight, and had an impressive talent for locating the best cheap takeout in the city. Life skill, he said one night while handing me a box of noodles. Everyone should have one. Alexa started appearing more often. Sometimes she came over with Lucas's other friends. Sometimes she and I met up separately for coffee or dinner. There was no pressure, no intense declarations, just conversation that moved easily between jokes, work complaints, and the kind of small observations people share when they feel safe. One evening she asked, "Do you miss where you came from?" I thought about it. "Not really," I said. "You left a lot behind." "Yeah." "And you're okay with that?" I shrugged. Some things are easier to leave once you understand them clearly. She studied my face for a moment, like she was deciding whether to ask another question. Then she smiled. "Fair enough." The divorce process continued quietly in the background. Evans handled most of it. One afternoon he called while I was driving home from work. "Grant is escalating," he said. "How?" "He's amended the filing, still claiming abandonment and emotional distress." I laughed. "That's impressive." "Standard strategy," Evans said calmly. "Create noise and hope you panic. And if I don't, then it fades." He paused. "He's also requesting temporary financial assistance during the separation." That part didn't surprise me. "How much?" 3 months of rent. I thought about Grant standing at that dinner table, telling everyone I was too weak to survive without him. "No," I said. Evans chuckled softly. That was my recommendation as well. The messages from Grant didn't stop. They simply evolved. At first they were angry, then confused. Now they carried a strange mix of frustration and pleading. One evening, my phone buzzed while I was cooking pasta in Lucas's kitchen. Grant again. You can't erase 5 years. Another message followed. We built a life together. Then another. I'm not asking you to come back. Just help me get through this transition. Lucas glanced at my phone screen and raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, he said. He suddenly respects your independence now that you're gone? Something like that. I set the phone face down on the counter. The pasta water boiled over a second later, forcing me to turn back to the stove. Funny how ordinary moments keep happening even when someone else thinks your world is collapsing. A week later, Evans called again. He's willing to settle, he said. What does that mean? No money changing hands, clean divorce. That sounds reasonable. I thought you'd agree. He paused. All we need now is your signature. The paperwork was 7 pages long. Legal language. Financial declarations. Formal confirmation that the 5 years I had shared with Grant were now officially categorized as something that used to exist. Evans slid the document across his desk. Once the judge signs, it'll be finalized in about 30 days, he explained. I picked up the pen. For a moment, I remembered the steakhouse. The long table, Grant's voice. She needs me more than I need her. I signed my name. Evans smiled. Congratulations. Strange thing to congratulate someone on, I said. He shrugged. Freedom deserves recognition. That night, Lucas invited a few friends over. Pizza boxes covered the kitchen table. A basketball game played on the television in the living room. Alexa sat beside me on the couch, arguing with Lucas about which team had the worst defense. Normal noise. Normal laughter. Normal life. At one point, she leaned closer and asked quietly, Everything okay? I nodded. Yeah. You look lighter tonight. That word stayed with me. Lighter. Not happier exactly, but unburdened. Work kept accelerating. After 3 months, Baxter called me into his office. We're expanding, he said. He slid a sheet of paper across his desk. Promotion offer. Senior team lead. 18% salary increase. Expanded responsibilities. I stared at the document for a moment. 3 months earlier, I had been sitting at a motel desk, wondering if I had just destroyed my entire life. Now I was being offered a leadership role. I was hoping you'd say yes, Baxter added. I do, I said. I signed the paper right there. Life settled into rhythm after that. Work. Evenings with friends. Occasional dinners with Alexa that lasted longer than either of us planned. Eventually, I rented a small house. Nothing impressive. Just a single-story place with a yard and a garage. But when I opened the front door for the first time, the quiet felt different. It wasn't emptiness. It was space. Space to breathe. Space to exist without explanation. One night while we were sitting on the back porch, Alexa asked a question that made me pause. Do you ever think about him? I watched the sunset fading across the yard. Sometimes, I said. What do you think about? She rested her chin in her hand. Whether your life would be different if you'd stayed. I considered that carefully. Or whether you're grateful you didn't, she added. That part was easier. I'm glad I didn't, I said. She nodded slowly. Good answer. A few weeks later, a message arrived from an unknown number. This is Judith. I stared at the screen for a moment before opening the rest. Grant isn't doing well. He lost his job last week. He barely eats. I'm worried about him. For a second, something inside me softened. 5 years isn't nothing. But then another memory surfaced. A steakhouse table. A room full of people. Grant's voice cutting through the silence. You're comfortable being mediocre. I deleted the message. Some sympathy arrives too late to matter. 2 days later, Evans called again. Good news, he said. The settlement is finalized. Clean split. No money exchanged. All right. I just need one final signature. I met him the next afternoon. Signed the final page. And just like that, it was finished. The marriage. The legal ties. The version of my life that once revolved around proving myself to someone who had already decided I wasn't enough. Later that evening, I stood in the kitchen of my small rented house, looking at the quiet rooms around me. For the first time in years, no one expected anything from me except honesty. And it turned out that was more than enough. Life has a strange way of becoming ordinary again after something that once felt catastrophic. 3 months after leaving, my days had settled into a rhythm that felt almost peaceful. Mornings started early. Coffee on the back porch while the sun came up over the yard. A short drive to the office. Meetings, planning sessions, and the quiet satisfaction of watching projects move forward because of decisions I made. Work wasn't easy, but it was fair. And fairness, I had learned, is often more valuable than comfort. My promotion to senior team lead changed my schedule quickly. More responsibility, more people asking for my input, more long-term planning. One afternoon, Kelly leaned against the edge of my desk and said, You realize people actually listen when you speak in meetings now. I looked up from my laptop. They did before. She smiled slightly. Before they respected your analysis, now they trust your judgment. That was different. Trust meant something. It meant my voice carried weight. And every time I walked into a meeting room now, I felt a quiet reminder of something Grant had once said so confidently. You're comfortable being mediocre. Funny how life proves people wrong without making a speech about it. Outside of work, things kept expanding slowly. Lucas remained one of my closest friends in the city. We live separately now, but we met for dinner or pool games at least once a week. You upgraded, he joked the first time he saw my rented house. Barely. Still counts. Alexa came by more often too. Sometimes we cooked dinner. Sometimes we just sat on the porch talking until it got too late to pretend we were going to bed early. There was something refreshing about the pace of it. No pressure. No constant evaluation. Just two people figuring out whether they enjoyed each other's company enough to keep seeing where it went. One evening while we were washing dishes together, she said casually, "You know what I like about you?" I handed her a towel. What? You don't try to win conversations. I laughed. That's a surprisingly low bar. You'd be amazed how many people fail it. The divorce paperwork finished processing about a month later. Evans called to confirm it. It's official now, he said. Everything's finalized. I leaned back in my office chair. Good. You're handling this unusually calmly, he added. Should I be throwing furniture? Some people do. I smiled. I think the furniture deserves better. Evans chuckled. Well, congratulations again. Clean break. When the call ended, I sat quietly for a moment. 5 years had officially become paperwork. It felt strangely neutral. Not joyful. Not painful. Just finished. But Grant wasn't finished. A week later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it. Curiosity won. Elena, it's Grant. I stared at the screen for a few seconds. So he had finally found my number again. Another message followed. We need to talk. A third appeared almost immediately. This isn't about getting back together. I just need help figuring some things out. I didn't answer. 5 minutes later, another text arrived. I'm struggling financially right now. I thought maybe you could help me with rent for a couple months. I read that message twice. Not because I was considering it, because the irony was almost impressive. The man who once told an entire room I couldn't survive without him was now asking me for financial assistance. Lucas was sitting across from me at the kitchen table when I showed him the screen. He leaned back in his chair and whistled softly. That's bold. That's one word for it. You responding? I locked the phone and slid it into my pocket. No. He nodded approvingly. Good call. A few days later, another message arrived. This time it was from Judith again. You're being cruel. Grant is having a really hard time right now. I stared at the text. Then another one came through. 5 years together should mean something. It did. It meant I knew exactly how Grant worked. Silence. Distance. Control slipping away. And then the sudden appearance of emotional responsibility. I deleted the message. Life continued moving forward. At work, my team expanded. Baxter asked me to help interview new candidates. That alone told me how much trust had grown in a short time. You've got good instincts about people, he said. I almost laughed when he said it. If only he knew how long it had taken me to trust those instincts myself. One evening, Alexa and I were sitting on the porch watching a thunderstorm roll in across the horizon. The sky turned that deep gray color that makes the air feel heavier. You ever think about what would have happened if you stayed? She asked. With Grant? Yeah. I thought about it carefully. Not emotionally. Practically. I'd probably still be trying to prove I deserve basic respect, I said. She nodded slowly. That sounds exhausting. It was. We sat quietly for a few minutes, watching the rain start falling across the yard. Then she added, I'm glad you didn't stay. I looked over at her. Me too. About 2 weeks later, Evans called again. Grant accepted the settlement terms completely, he said. I thought that already happened. This is the final closure. No appeals, no further claims. Good. He paused. Honestly, he fought harder than most people in cases like this. Why? Hard to say, Evans replied. Sometimes people don't fight because they want something. Sometimes they fight because they don't want to admit they lost. That sounded exactly like Grant. That weekend, Lucas came over with pizza and a couple of his friends. Alexa arrived later carrying a bag of groceries. You can't live on pizza forever, she announced. Lucas looked offended. Watch me. The house filled with conversation, laughter, and the kind of casual chaos that comes from people who enjoy being around each other. At one point, I stepped out onto the porch alone for a minute. Inside, I could hear Alexa arguing with Lucas about music while someone opened another bottle of beer. It struck me then how quiet my old life had been. Not peaceful, controlled. Every conversation carefully managed. Every disagreement treated like a threat. Now the house was loud and imperfect and alive. And I realized something simple. I hadn't spent the last few months proving Grant wrong. I had simply started living normally again. Later that night, after everyone left, Alexa helped me stack dishes in the kitchen. "You seem happy," she said. I considered the word. Not excited. Not euphoric. Happy. "I think I am," I said. She smiled. "Good." The last message from Grant came a few days later. Just one sentence. "I didn't think you'd actually leave." I stared at it for a moment. Then I deleted it without replying. Some lessons don't need explanations. They just need distance. A year passed faster than I expected. Not because anything dramatic happened. Because nothing dramatic needed to. Life settled into something steady. Predictable in the best way. The kind of routine people underestimate until they've lived without it for a long time. Work continued growing. The team I helped build expanded from 6 people to 12. Baxter trusted me with hiring decisions now. Kelly involved me in strategy meetings that used to happen several levels above my position. One afternoon, Baxter leaned against my office doorway and said, "You realize you've become one of the people we depend on here." I looked up from my laptop. "That sounds like a lot of pressure." He smiled. "It's respect." That word still meant something to me. Respect had been the one thing missing from my previous life. The small house I rented started feeling like home. The yard needed work when I moved in. But after a few weekends of trimming hedges and planting a few flowers, it began to look intentional instead of neglected. Lucas still came by often, usually with food, sometimes with bad advice. "You need a grill," he said one Saturday afternoon while leaning against the porch railing. "I have a stove." That's not the same thing. Alexa arrived a few minutes later carrying a bag of groceries. "And you definitely don't need Lucas giving you lifestyle guidance," she added. Lucas looked offended. "I am an excellent source of wisdom." "You once microwaved a fork," she said. "That was one time." The 3 of us ended up laughing hard enough that the neighbors probably heard us. Moments like that had become normal. Normal in a way my life with Grant had never been. There were no constant tests, no silent competitions, no quiet expectation that one of us needed to dominate the other. Just people who liked each other's company. Alexa and I had never rushed anything. Somewhere along the way, casual dinners had become something steadier. We still teased each other, still argued about movies and music, but now she kept a toothbrush in my bathroom, and sometimes she stayed the night. One evening while we were cooking together, she asked a question that made me pause. "Do you ever think about him anymore?" I knew who she meant. "Sometimes," I admitted. "What do you think about?" I stirred the sauce slowly while considering the answer. Mostly how different everything would be if I had stayed. She leaned against the counter. And how grateful I am that I didn't." She nodded like she expected that answer. News from my old life reached me in small, unexpected ways, usually through people who weren't directly involved. One afternoon, an unknown number texted me. "This is Judith." I almost ignored it, but curiosity won again. The next message appeared immediately. "Grant lost his job last week. He's not doing well, barely eating. I thought you should know." For a moment, I felt the faint pull of something old. 5 years together isn't nothing. Shared routines, shared holidays, shared plans that never happened. But then another memory followed. Grant leaning back in his chair at that steakhouse. His voice calm and certain. "She needs me more than I need her." I looked at Judith's message again. Then I deleted it. Sympathy can exist without obligation. And sometimes distance is the healthiest form of kindness you can offer. A few weeks later, my phone rang with another unfamiliar number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Instead, I answered. "Hello?" There was a brief pause. "Elena?" The voice sounded older than I remembered. "This is Mark," he said, "Grant's father." I leaned back in my chair. "Oh, I hope it's okay that I called." "It's fine." Another pause. "I wanted to say something that I should have said a year ago." I waited. "At that dinner," he said quietly. "What Grant said to you, it wasn't right." The memory flickered briefly. The long table. The silence. "I should have stopped it," he continued. "I didn't, and I'm sorry." That apology meant more than he probably realized, because it acknowledged the moment everyone else had chosen to ignore. "Thank you," I said. "I'm glad you're doing well," he added. "Grant told us you moved away, got a new job." "I did." "He also said you're doing very well there." Things worked out. There was another quiet pause. "I just wanted you to know," he said. "I never believed what he said about you that night." "I appreciate the call," I replied. And I meant it. We ended the conversation there. No dramatic closure, just the small satisfaction of hearing someone finally name the truth. That evening, Lucas and Alexa came over for dinner. Burgers on the grill, music playing softly through the kitchen window. At one point, Lucas raised his beer and said, "You know, if you hadn't moved here, I'd still be eating microwave dinners every night." "You still eat microwave dinners," Alexa said. "Not every night." I laughed and clinked my bottle against his. It was such a simple moment. Friends, food, laughter drifting into the warm evening air. Nothing about it felt like survival anymore. It felt like living. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat alone on the back porch. The sky was clear. The yard was quiet. I thought back to that night a year earlier. The steakhouse, the long table, Grant's voice echoing across the room. You'll come crawling back within weeks, maybe days. He had believed it completely. Not because he knew me, but because he had spent years convincing himself I couldn't exist without him. The truth turned out to be simpler. I didn't need him to prove anything. I just needed to leave. A soft breeze moved through the yard as the sun disappeared below the horizon. My phone buzzed once on the table beside me. Lucas again. Movie night tomorrow? I smiled and typed back. Only if you're not picking the movie. His reply came instantly. Rude. I set the phone down and leaned back in the chair. 1 year earlier, I had walked out of a restaurant wondering if I had just destroyed my life. Instead, I had finally started it. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe. It helps a lot. I've picked 2 other stories you might like next. Click one, and I'll see you there. See you soon.